Hello there and welcome to the first episode of a new podcast, Joe and Toby Talk. I am Toby and my co-host Joe joins me tonight to discuss the Virtual World Snooker Championship, which replaced the conventional championships this year due to the coronavirus pandemic. Myself and Joe both run gaming channels on YouTube and have also done a podcast in the past called Tuesday Night Live. However, these podcasts tended to not be on a Tuesday, so the name did get a little bit old. So we are relaunching the podcast after 12 months out to do exactly what it says on the tin. Joe and Toby Talk. To make matters more confusing in today's podcast, we are joined by two special guests, Mike Chin and Tom Mayhew. Mike and Tom were players in the Virtual World Championship as well as my co-host Joe. And in tonight's bumper show, believe me, it is a bumper show at over 2 hours long, we will be discussing the ins and outs of the Virtual World Championship as well as a special interview with the winner of the tournament, Scott Edwards. We hope to release regular podcast episodes with deep dives like this in the world of sports and gaming, and the podcast will be available on YouTube, Spotify and other podcasting platforms, and when it is available on other platforms, we will let you know. So make sure for now to follow the podcast page on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channels. You'll find the links for these down in the description of the YouTube video. And obviously if you're listening on Spotify, you'll be able to find the Spotify page fairly easily from the viewing page. We hope that you enjoy the podcast, and many thanks to our special guests, Mike and Tom.
Okay, so we are delighted to be joined by the great ChinChinny, or otherwise known as Mike, and we also have Tommy Triangle as well, Tom himself, two brilliant YouTubers that are wonderful in the snooker scene. So first I'm going to introduce you to Chinny, so hello to you, or hello should I say, because
yeah, that's I do say hello,
hello
Joe.
Hello, how's it going?
How's it going? Yeah, I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. I'm good. You know, I'm a little sort of having a bit of a break from snooker, but yeah, I'm fine. I'm all good.
Good. So do you want to tell us about your YouTube channel and maybe a bit of the history of snooker games for you, Chinny?
Well, I have a YouTube channel about well, I kind of picture it as like snooker and video games in one place. So my plan is to kind of review every snooker game ever made on there. So that's ChinChinny. And my history with snooker video games really is just I've played snooker a lot as a kid, and I was in a real life team for many years, and obviously video games was a thing. So now and again I would kind of have one, and Jimmy White's snooker was probably the first one I ever played on the Amiga, and then the Jimmy White's Cue Ball 2 on the PC was the big one for me, where you could walk around and the snooker room was on the right, the pool table was on the left, and I loved it. And yeah, and I had a bit of a, I'd never really had a PlayStation, but I stole my brother's PlayStation and played like the 2000 snooker game here and there, and then the 2007 one on the 360 I played, but yeah, there hasn't been a massive we haven't got a plethora of snooker games to choose from, but that's my snooker history in video games.
I'm very interested to hear about Jimmy White's Cue Ball 2, because I actually played that on the retro show at some point on my channel, on the PS1 version. So
yeah, the PS1 version, yeah.
What was your highest break, Joe? Was it about 8?
Yeah, probably about 8. It was honestly, it was very difficult, but
there's a cheat on Jimmy White's Cue Ball 2. Did you know about this cheat, Joe?
No, I didn't play it much, funnily enough, Chinny.
No, there's a cheat where there's a mouse hole in the snooker room behind a chair, and if you look at this mouse hole, it does nothing. You just look at it, and then you can you can basically see all the lines all over the place, so you can pot every ball. And I just used to spend my youth doing that for some reason, knocking in 147s, thinking I was great. And
that's how you're so good at snooker, isn't it?
That's why I'm so good at snooker, is because I cheated. But there was a follow-up to Cue Ball 2, which is Jimmy White's Cue Ball World Tour, which I've never played, and I've always wanted to give it a go. And it features a Jimmy White sitting on the same chair every clip, which he obviously recorded immediately after every one. And it was like, now you're in Africa. Well done for getting there. And you're like, oh, okay. And I clearly on a lot of cocaine, Jimmy White. And, you know, I want to explore that and play that for the channel.
So what system is that on?
I don't know. I think that's on the PC as well. I think it was about a year or so after the and it was just like it's Archie McLean, isn't it? The guy who made the games, and I think he was good mates with Jimmy White. There's a few behind the scenes videos of him, and these are the kind of things I wanted to explore. It's like kind of this weird era of like British indie game development with a very niche British sport, you know. And yeah, I think they were kind of mates, and he was very good at. He made the Amiga game, and he made this cue ball one, and he obviously cashed in and went, I need to make another one of these. How could I do it? Oh, the snooker table's in Australia now. Bam, we got a game. You know. So that's my channel and history of snooker. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I really look forward to seeing that video if it ever sees
never
the light
gonna
of
happen,
day.
Joe. So don't worry about it.
But so that's the YouTube side. So now moving on to 2020 and the Virtual World Championship. So how did you get involved in that?
Well, I like probably yourself, Joe. I got a message late in the night from a lady.
All right, okay, we'll leave that one there.
And she said, "Hey, do you want to join the tournament?" And I was like, "Damn it, that's not the message I was hoping for." But yes, anyway, I will do that. And I thought it was going to be some sort of semi-serious tournament. I didn't know that I'd entered into the official World Champion Virtual Betfred tournament. And yeah, you know, I met Holly from Ripstone Games at EGX Resd when we could actually physically be next to other people, and it was just kind of like an off. It was an afterthought, really. I was like, oh, I'll interview her. I've been to EGX for about 10 years now with my friends, and I always do a little video on my other channel of EGX and different things, and like nobody cares about snooker in that kind of world. Like we all like video games, but a few of those people in that, like, so I do a podcast every week about video games, and a few of those people have trickled through to my snooker YouTube channel, but generally no one cares. And I was like, oh, but I love snooker, so I interviewed Ollie, and she was like, oh, get involved with this tournament. And then I heard that you, Joe, were in it, and Tommy was in it, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I started to realise that all these fantastic players was in it, and then I'm in trouble. And but no, it's been great fun. I've really enjoyed it, and people have got behind what we've been doing with it, Joe, and the commentary that we've been covering, and it's good, but it's also quite exhausting. It was quite a lot of work to put them all together. So I'm kind of I'm glad that it's done, but I'm also kind of glad that it's over in some way as well. But it was really good. It was a lot of fun doing it. But I lost on the first round.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but thank you, Chinny, for that. So, Toby, do you want to take over here?
Yeah, we'll talk to Tom now. Well, I hope we're not going to get any wacky analogies about any messages in the night here, or indeed anything about Jimmy White's cue ball, but who knows. But so, Tom, let's talk through your YouTube first off. You've recently added to your Twitter bio that you're a virtual snooker player. I mean, what a title to be.
Yeah, well, I guess when I started getting like invites from people to be interviewed on the radio, I kind of felt, this kind of makes this my life now. This is kind of my real life job.
Talk a bit about that. How did that all come about?
Literally, I got a message from BBC Radio Sheffield saying, oh, we saw you in this virtual championship. And I think because I was representing Judd Trump, I was probably one of the first names who they saw. So they were like, oh, do you want to come and be interviewed on the radio about being a virtual snooker player? Which is a crazy thing, because I don't think anyone else has ever done that before. That's you know, I don't know anyone else. Oh, I think Welsh Boone is probably the only other person who has done it, let's be honest. So yeah, that was fun. But yes, my channel, I play Snooker 19. That's the main thing I kind of play. I want to do more games, but I can't stop playing snooker. It's just too much fun.
Yeah, don't we all? I mean, myself and Joe have both done over 100 videos on the career mode, so it's fair to say we're kind of addicted, and Chinny and Tom, you are clearly as well. But on the snooker side, what's your history with snooker? How did you get into snooker, and obviously the tournament as well?
I first liked snooker as a kid. My brother used to like it a lot. We had like a mini pool table in our house. It wasn't full size. It was kind of a I guess kiddie size, but we had that growing up. We used to play pool when we used to have queues, and we used to play that in the living room. The first video game I played was probably Virtual Pool on the PlayStation 1, which was in about 1999, I think I played it, which might be before you were born, Toby. Is that before you were born?
No comment.
Yeah, I'm not saying that was the reason you were born, but who knows? Who knows?
Wow.
I've never found that in the old collection, so I mean, I don't really know how to respond to that. But
Virtual Pool does strange things to a man. That's all I'll say.
Anyway, right after Virtual Pool was it the official World Snooker Games after that with Virgo and Dennis and.
Yeah, I think the first one I actually got was probably the first one on PS2, which I think was 2002, or was it 2001? No, I think it was 2002.
Yeah.
And had that one, and then the next one I got was probably 2005, which was my favourite one. Mainly, I guess, because it had Paul Hunter on the front, and he's my favourite player ever, and you know, he's kind of a legend. And that's, I mean, people do say that's the best game, arguably the best snooker game, 2005, so that was probably a good one to choose. I think Joe would probably back me up on that.
Yeah, Joe definitely agrees with that.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic game.
Yeah. Did you win the Worlds on that in the end, Joe? With on the YouTube career?
Not in the YouTube career, no, but I did win it.
He didn't. He failed miserably.
Yeah, I got absolutely thumped off Mark Williams in that match, I think. So. How times have changed, you know. Snooker 19. It's still Mark Williams that I'm playing in it. You know, some things never change. But.
That's
quite
the mad thing.
Quite incredible, that really.
Well, yeah, that's the mad thing. I remember there was a slight controversy about Mark not being on the front cover of Snooker 19.
That's right.
And I was like, mate, you were on the front cover in 2001.
That was your chance to shine.
Yeah, he was. I think he must have been the defending champion when that first game was released.
He won in 2000, yeah.
That's crazy, isn't it? No other sportsman has that sort of span of time being in video games, I don't think.
Well, maybe RainyLamb will be the virtual World Snooker holder in 2040. Who knows? And he might be on the front of a game in 20. I mean, I can't see it, but who knows?
When real snooker players are extinct. Because nobody can get onto the practice table.
Yeah, I mean, you think you don't want to touch a dirty, felt in this day and age, do you?
It'd be like RainyLamb's This Is Snooker 2028 or something.
Yeah, he's defected from the Ripstone franchise and moved to the Vufu Studios version.
Which snooker game has like 3 Ronnies on it?
WC 11.
Okay. Is that 11? Because there's 1 year where they just went, I almost wore there. Forget it. Let's put 3 Ronnies on it. Like there's no other snooker player. And I was like, if I was another snooker player, if I was like number 2 in the world at that point, I'd be like, what the hell? But
maybe they were a big fan of the 2 Ronnies, and thought
3 Ronnies.
I thought, we know how to make this better. We'll just add another one.
Yeah.
The 3 Ronnies.
Yeah, the 3 Ronnies. Yeah.
To be honest, I've never played 11, but it's a bit of a downgrade. I've heard on 09, isn't it? Just a bit.
Yeah, me and Tom were actually talking about this the other day on my stream, and it's just a weird game. I just don't know what they were thinking releasing that, but
I think it was rushed. I think it was they ran out of time, and it was before patches were the done thing, really. Patches have become a much bigger thing in the PS4, Xbox One era. In PS3 there were patches, but not to the same extent, so we just had this half-baked snooker game with 3 Ronnies, and you had 2 more Ronnies than usual, but you also had 2 less commentators, because you had Virgo just on his own, really lonely.
Yeah, and only the really weirdly recorded ones that sounded like he'd done on Discord one day, probably. But,
is this the point when you tell people that the podcast is recorded on Discord, Joe?
Well, yeah. I'll let people decide whether we sound like John Virgo in 2011, and whether they can make that deduction. But,
I mean, that would be quite interesting, wouldn't it? But I think the first factor we talk about, because we are here to talk, surprisingly, I don't know if anybody's figured it out from the first 20 odd minutes, but we are here to talk about the Virtual World Championship, which has happened, of course, because of the coronavirus pandemic. But there are a lot of things that have...
You're not meant to mention that on YouTube, Toby.
Oh, sod it.
Do we know if it was it definitely not planned before the pandemic? Do we know it definitely was a last minute thing?
I would.
All right, okay.
So,
let's rephrase. It was a substitute for the real world championship, which could not happen because of the pandemic. Or was there another reason why? No, okay. And anyway, we had this lovely championship, and these three lovely people were in it. Unfortunately, I wasn't because I owned the wrong console. We won't go into that though. So today we are going to talk about that finally, and I feel like the first fact we're going to talk about here, because we've gone into it with brilliant fashion, we've been led into it talking about John Virgo, who else? So we're going to go from talking about John Virgo to talking about David Hendon.
Oh yeah,
marvellous. I must admit, when I first...
I did notice that, but I didn't want to bring you up on it.
They call him Barry. I don't know why. I think that was high.
No, there's a great moment. I think in the I think it was one of the semi-finals where you call him Barry, and then Joe's just silent for 40 seconds. Kind of like, yeah. And I can tell he's going, "Do I pull him up on?" No, I'm just gonna leave it.
Leave it.
It's probably Barry Hearn commentating. You're right, mate. Yeah.
I know. That's what I meant, David. But I said Barry. I don't know what it is.
Well, but not as bad as all these people in the comments that said it's nice that Steve Davis is commentating on this match.
That's true.
Where have they got Steve Davis from? Yeah. But anyway, there you go. But what I was getting onto is in that first match between yours truly, Tom, and Yan Bingtao. When I first watched that, because as YouTubers, we don't tend to listen to the commentary itself in isolation. We tend to put our really annoying voice over the video, and I suddenly realised how boring and monotone the original game commentary is, with the repetitiveness of Neil Folds. If you go within 5 metres of the cushion, saying that, well, he's lost the cue ball a touch, and other repetitive lines. But my point is, and my first question is in terms of commentary and analysing that for the tournament, do you think that perhaps there should have been some external commentators brought in? Of course, 2 people did do some commentary for the matches. I can't think who they were. There was
Losers.
A well-known YouTuber in there, and
Joe.
Yeah, and Joe. I don't know. I don't know who that was. But for anybody that doesn't know, we won't continue the joke any longer.
No,
Joe and Chinny did do some commentary for the matches. But from the semi-finals, World Snooker decided to draft in David Hendon to do the commentary by himself, which was a little bit bizarre. But I think the question is, and we'll get to you first, Joe, because you haven't spoke for a while, so those vocal cords have been relaxed a little bit. But do you think there should have been some external commentary from round 1, whether that be David Hendon, whether that be yourself and Chinny, whether that be anybody? Because I think for anybody who isn't into Snooker 19 in the degree we are, it kind of made it a little bit unwatchable, because commentary is such a big part of snooker, especially when, you know, on BBC, when you've got Virgo. I mean, I think we're clearly just obsessed with John Virgo and Dennis Taylor, aren't we? But alright, I'll just phrase the question. Do you think that there should have been some external commentators chucked over the game audio from round 1 onwards?
Yes, I think, as you say, we all watched that first day, and believe it or not, as participants in the tournament, we had no idea how it was going to be presented, how it was going to look. All we were told is record 3 one-frame matches and send us your files, and we just sent them off with commentary on. That's all we knew. So that first day, and I remember it vividly, Rob Walker coming on and you know, introducing the players, and I thought, oh wow, this is great. They've gone above and beyond. But then as soon as the break off happened, it was just the gameplay, and there was nothing else. You know, and you had Judd Trump bobbing up and down on the left hand side, and Yan Bingtao doing the same on the right hand side. And you know, it was such a shame there wasn't commentary, because I actually think that match with you, Tom, and Billy Boy was one of the most entertaining of the whole competition. And
thank you. That's what I was trying to do.
yeah, wait, you were just finding your inner Judd Trump, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, what is a foul if not the ultimate naughty snooker? That's
exactly,
what I think.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think I messaged Ripstone that day and said, look, I think this needs commentary. Me and Chinny are doing commentary for all of the matches anyway. We'd be happy.
I remember you sending me a much more explicit message than that, to be quite honest.
yeah, but they decided to go in a different direction, for whatever reason. And but yeah, I think if it is something to do in the future, I think they will do it with commentary, simply because they drafted in David Hendon, as you say, for the semi-final and final, and I think people really appreciated that. So I think it is something they'll do in the future, hopefully, if there is any tournament.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it's just the time constraints, really. It was put together so quickly. I mean, I remember hearing about this a few days before it happened, and I was just really excited. And then all of a sudden it was happening, and I know you guys didn't know much long before me, so that was a real shock. But do you think possibly that the commentary from the semi-final also, Chinny, it lacked as well because of David Hendon's lack of knowledge for the game? It was quite amusing when, so especially RainyLamb, kept knocking in all these long blues, and David Hendon, every time he's just there with amazement. How does he keep knocking in these blues when obviously on the game it's that cheap blue which you guys have coined the term? And by the way, I've pinched that now for my series, so
yeah,
copyright
do it,
Joe and Chinny.
No, we didn't copyright it in time, did we, Chinny? So
no, I'm getting the checks. I just haven't told Joe. No, I think I think what I was relieved that they put commentary on, and I think David did a good job with what he was given. Do you know what I mean? He's from his point of view, he's just what's this? Some video game? I don't know. I got nothing else going on. Fine, whatever. I just don't want to speak to my wife. Just give me something to do. So he does this, and he's and he commentates, and it's nice that he did it. It's a nice gesture that he did it, because he probably just did it off his own back. There's no money in it, so it was cool. But I think what it needed was someone like Joe to be on there with him. Do you know what I mean? And then that would have been an interesting dynamic then, because then you've got somebody who's an experienced commentator on TV, and then you've got Joe who's got this YouTube channel and also knows the game inside out, and then he can kind of learn as he goes that, oh, actually these long blues are nothing, and these are the shots. So when Joe and I did commentary, we know what shots are tricky, which shots are, like, oh, that's why he played the long red, that's why he played the long blue. We know what's available. So I think they just, for the future, I think, to be honest, I don't think people care if it's like a real commentator or not. I think they just need people to drive it through. Like, real snooker needs commentary for it to people to stay engaged, to drive it through. And I think virtual snooker needs it even more, because it's not real. So people have this element of like, it's not real, so why am I engaged? But you need commentary to drive people through it. And if David's involved with it, that's great. But I feel like if people know the game, the commentator should be, like a reflection of what the players are thinking. So if the commentators are experienced enough to know what the players could be thinking, then it doesn't really matter as long as they're experienced enough. Then that's why I think people liked Joe and I's commentary, because we know the game pretty well, and we could sort of give an insight to what the players were doing. But it'd be cool. I just think Joe and David would be a cool thing. That's what I kind of was thinking would happen. They would ask Joe to do it, and with David or something like that. But they just didn't. I don't know.
As if Joe would cheat on him. Joe would never cheat on Chinny.
He would, yeah, and I would expect him to. You know what I mean? I would.
You would fully support it, would you?
Yeah, I would fully support it. You know what I mean?
Endorse
it. That meme, that gif of that guy just doing that nod, in the snow. That's what I'd do. I'd be like, look, it's fine. You know what I mean? It's all good. Because I would in a heartbeat. So, and when you got Mr. 14,000 subs over there, who are they going to pick? So no, I think it would be good to do that though. And a Geordie accent's way better than a black country accent anyway. So
well, Joe was.
Well, hang on a minute. You can't just say things like that, especially when you're from round here. It's just so. Oh, just so demeaning on us lot. I mean,
it's true.
Joe's not even a Geordie anymore. He's gone.
Hey, I am a Geordie.
He's gone to sunnier climes.
Yeah, he's gone to the northwest now. But
he's 60, 70 miles close to the equator. So I mean, sunnier climes. It does it for me, I think. But mind you, we don't have such good weather down here.
He's changed ever since.
Yeah, I think he has massively. Yeah. But Tom, would Joe and David Hendon be your magic commentary group? And do you think that? I suppose it depends how much you watch. Did you watch much of the Chinny streams, or was it WST? Because I know, especially for those early rounds where there wasn't any commentary, I always watched Chinny streams because having that commentary was just so much better. Especially, I have to take my hat off to Joe here. I mean, Joe's getting a lot of praise, but believe me, that'll backfire a bit later on. Because especially those videos where he was playing and he was talking through what he was doing, because you could just see the pressure of the situation. It was absolutely fascinating to watch. It's not just like one of his career mode videos where he goes, oh, bugger it, I'll just play this red. I'm 9-1 up anyway, who cares? But obviously, that doesn't happen every time, but most of the time it does, because Joey's a world champion on his career mode, and mine's not going so well. But anyway, we won't talk about that. But I think the main question was, Tom, did you prefer the commentary of Joe and Chinny or the commentary of David Hendon from the 70s? I know that's a horrible question, but just try and pretend that Joe and Chinny aren't here. But this is just between me, you, and the whole of YouTube.
Oh, yeah, obviously David Hendon, then, obviously, I mean, I just thought Joe and Chinny were so amateurish, they didn't have all the facts. They in a way, they knew too much about the game. No, obviously I did prefer Joe and Chinny because, I mean, that's the thing. Just when you have two people commenting, you have more of a person to bounce off. There's more of a more of a banter. I mean, as much as I love John Virgo, if it was him on his own, like it is in one of the snooker games, it's not as special as when it's him and Dennis, or even him and Ken, or him and Alan. It's just when it's two people, it's far more entertaining, and that's why all snooker matches have two commentators in the first place, which I imagine they would have had two if well, I don't know, but I know obviously the lockdowns made it more difficult, so maybe they would have wanted to have Neo and David, but they couldn't put them together. Maybe that's why they just had David. But yeah, I think it added a bit having two people together. It made it a bit more entertaining, and I mean, it was just funnier. But that's the thing. There was sometimes I watched Joe and Chinny streams, and I was like, yeah, I can see why World Snooker don't want to put this on their channel, because they might upset John Higgins.
Well, I'm just concerned about his cholesterol.
And a severe dieting that allowed him to, get into that shape for the virtual worlds.
He looks very happy. Permanently.
He's very happy. Well, you would be if you lost that much weight.
You're making him sound like Stephen Lee here, Chinny.
Well, there's a lot of things I can compare with John Higgins and Stephen Lee, but let's not go there. I know it's Ramadan and everything, but geez, he must be cutting down on his carbs. But that's nice of you to say, Tommy, that you liked mine and Joe's. But I just think, it was just my concern when they were doing the tournament, when they said make sure you record your clips and include the referee, the audio, and the commentary, in-game commentary. That was the first alarm for me. That was the first I don't know if they're gonna actually commentate on it. And that was the first sort of trigger for me to go, oh well, why don't I do it? And then I was like, well, it'd be rubbish to do it on my own. Why don't I ask Joe? And amazingly, Joe said yes. I still don't know why. And because it's better to have two people. So I was like, okay, that's way better. But I think it's a weird one because they've got two commentators in the game. So I don't know why they didn't, ask around a little bit. And it must be there's something to do with licenses and things like
I
that?
think
Because
so, definitely,
Eurosport and BBC. And
Yeah, I agree with you, Chinny. I think it's down to if they went for, say, Virgo and Dennis Taylor, then what does that say about their in-game commentary? Do you know what I mean? So,
yes, yeah. It's a bit of a tricky. There's a politics like people thing that comes in, isn't there? You know what I mean? Because David's in the game. What's the other chap that's in it? Neil.
And,
Former world number 3.
So you got like, well, they must have asked Neil and maybe he said no, but like you've got this weird sort of politics of like, if you ask Dennis, then it's like, yeah, but I'm not in the game because you couldn't afford me. You know what I mean? Or something like that. And it gets a bit trickier.
Well, he was too busy doing the song for NHS anyway. So.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that must have set him back a few.
That's the issue, though. You ask, I know people would have wanted Virgo and Taylor, but you ask David Hendon, he might do it for free. You ask Virgo and Taylor, and they go, "All right, pay me £500." That might be the issue there.
Yeah. I think it would have been
Virgo cheap.
It would have been great if they'd had multiple commentators on the tournament. We all know that, and I'm actually a bit surprised at how, we'll talk about this a little bit later, the sort of presentation style. But I was a bit surprised at how almost low budget it was, considering it seemingly had the backing of Betfred and World Snooker. I'm a little surprised they didn't put a bit more money into it, because we are talking about, David Hendon probably did it for free, although David may well comment in the down below and say he was paid money for it. If he was, great. But I am a little bit surprised.
£10,000 per match.
Yeah, and that's why they only did it for 3. And that's where our first round prize money went. But yeah, it was just something that surprised me a little bit. It would have been lovely to have multiple commentators, I think, but I suppose it again comes down to the short notice and obviously the global situation at the moment, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So we alluded to it there. We're going to talk next about the promotion of the tournament, which I think we can definitely focus on the positives of that, can't we, Joe, first off, because the promotion on Twitter, especially, I felt for the final on all the social networks, was really good. WST really getting behind it. I mean, joking apart, the fact that this was on the WST channel, they could have easily put it on a Ripstone channel or whatever, but from the start it was quite clear that we've got the backing of Betfred, we've got the backing of WST, all the parties that should be involved here are involved. So you've got that commitment, and like Chinny was saying, firstly he felt that this was going to be a kind of serious thing, then it all of a sudden dawns on you and you've got this quality of player, and then you've got all of these people getting behind it. You think, Jesus Christ, this isn't just a laughing matter. I can get presented a trophy at the Crucible. I better start practicing now. But the promotion behind it, I thought was good. Especially, again, we have to consider that they were under massive time constraints. Again, it was maybe 14 days maximum that anybody had kind of known the idea before it came to fruition.
Yeah, no, I think with the time that they had, they did a good job. Once I seen what they did for the final, though, I did almost wish that they'd done that maybe for the semis as well, and certainly, when they introduced the players, they just sort of snuck an article on the website, and
no, it's pronounced snooker, mate.
Snooker, yeah. Oh, you've thrown me off now. So that they put an article on their website and didn't really make a big deal of these 16 players. I thought the way they were going to do it was because we all sent a profile in, and you will have seen that on World Snooker if you read that or found it buried away there. But I thought they might have done player by player and just try and raise the hype a little bit. I think too often in the tournament people thought it was real, or didn't exactly know what was going on, didn't know why it was best of 3 or whatever. So they did all right, I think, throughout the tournament. I think they did brilliantly for the final, but other areas of the tournament, particularly the build up to the tournament, I think it was lacking a little bit, and that's maybe what impacted certainly on the early reception of the Virtual World Championship for me.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I just remember that first match going down like a ton of bricks because of the commentary issue, and I think B, because a lot of people didn't really know what was going on. And if you don't mind me saying, Tom, that the game was certainly interesting for some of the shots that were played, and people down in the chat were going, "Oh, is this the best you could get?" Yeah. And that first match, I don't think helped in promoting the tournament. So they could have done a brilliant job, and then it's like any product you have. You can promote so well, and then you present people with it, and it's like, oh, what on earth is this? And that I think was one of the main problems with that first match. It was so great with having Rob Walker at the start, and we were all thinking this is great. And as we talked about earlier, then it's just, well, it's Judd Trump to break, and
not even that though. Not even that. They just sort of they would comment on a shot 5 seconds after it passed, or in the case of going into the pack, they go, "That's a nice split," or "Not the best split," But what what you were saying about the first match of the tournament, I think because they hadn't made it clear that it was best of 3, and sort of the difficulty of that was on show, and I think it was almost the length of the match and the fact that players weren't just getting down and knocking in sentries straight away. People were confused about it, and I think that all came from they weren't clear enough about what was going on, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that first match, they just jumped into it, didn't they? There was no kind of... Right, there was a bit of a welcome to the tournament from Rob Walker, and then, right, it's Judd Trump against Bing Tao, and then bang, we're straight into it. And it's like, oh, right. But you're in the entertainment business, Tom, so you know probably better than any of us. But what did you think about the promotion? Did you think it was good? Because I definitely think there was some good elements to it, but clearly a lot to improve, especially with the whole... We've said this time and time again, but with the backing of Betfred, the backing of WST, we thought it'd be something a lot better and maybe not so low budget. But what did you think of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's always important to remember it is the first time they've done it. So,
100%.
I think it's always important just to state that and remember it. But yeah, the big issue with that, with jumping straight into it, is I don't think there was a single bit that said this is on Master Plus, this is on the hardest difficulty, this is on, a really tough... There was nothing that said that. So people had no idea whatsoever. Like, people had no idea if it was on easy difficulty, if it was on medium. People were just like, okay, I'm expecting this to be just like the real world snooker championship, which it's never going to be. Even if you get, the best players in the world, it's never going to be like real snooker. And I think that's why, part of the promotion, it should have linked to the commentary. You should have had a commentator like Joe, like Chinny, someone who can explain, oh, this is on the hardest difficulty, and this is why they missed that shot, and this is why that happened, and oh, this is a hard shot in the game, and that sort of thing. Because otherwise, people watching, like, for us who know the game, we watch it very differently to people who maybe it might be their first time they've ever watched Snooker 19. Like they might not have played it, they might not have seen any gameplay, and the first time watching it is that match, and the first shot they're seeing is Binny missing the pack. And the frame is ending by me going in off, and so they might be like,
what on earth is going on? But I think equally, to build on what you're saying there, Tom, is they didn't announce what was at stake either. They didn't say that we were going to be, the winner was going to be presented with a trophy at the Crucible. And I think a lot of the participants were in the chat and just saying, yeah, there'll be huge nerves on these guys because there is a lot at stake here for us. And I think that, that's something we'll probably talk about later, the nerves and everything. But
I mean, even if there wasn't a prize at stake, the reality is that even your most viewed Snooker 19 video has got maybe like, I don't know, I think the first one's got like 40,000 views, maybe about that. Whereas
it depends which one you're looking at, but yeah.
Well, most of the numbers we're talking, the numbers most of us get at the moment are,
in the thousands.
Joe's at the upper end with 2,000 a video, whereas these were getting, I think the first match got something like 100,000 views across Facebook and YouTube in 24 hours, which is an insane amount of, pressure to to perform, which you do feel if you're playing. Like, I played those matches in the tournament different to any matches I've ever played, because you're thinking, whoa, what will the audience think? What will they, what will they say? And that does get to you. It shouldn't do, but the audience does affect you, because they're going to be commenting, and you want to put on a show. So maybe at some point you go too attacking and mess up, and then they go, oh, why'd you do that shot? And then you go, well, it's because you would have moaned at me if I didn't do that shot.
I totally agree with you there. And you were talking about the worldwide audience or whatever, and obviously before the event happened, we didn't know how many people would watch, and snooker's a worldwide sport. It could have quite conceivably been millions of people that were watching. Like, it didn't turn out that way, but it could have been. And certainly I was playing it, I thought, oh God, has a million people just seen that shot or whatever, and as time goes on, the video might grow to be that. But I totally agree with what you said.
Do you think that possibly snooker, I'm going to ask Chinny, I'm going to get Chinny involved here, do you think that perhaps one of the issues was that it wasn't actually on terrestrial TV? I know that I'm sounding like a bit of an old fogey here, but especially being a YouTuber, but the match was only available on YouTube and Facebook, and it was surprising to me, to be honest, that there was nearly double the views on Facebook. Certainly live, I was tracking each of them, and let's say roughly the average on YouTube was 500 watching at a time, and on Facebook it was 1,000, which just boggles me completely. But do you think that if, let's say, Eurosport, it was on Eurosport 1 or Eurosport 2, particularly in this time of people not having much to watch or do you think it might have fared a lot better? Do you think that perhaps people might have, I don't know, say you just put the first match on there, that and all future matches will be on the YouTube channel or on the Facebook channel or whatever? Do you think that Chinny would have done a lot better perhaps if that initial push from somebody like Eurosport put it on their channel?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a bigger audience. More people would have watched it. I mean, you say, yeah, is a channel a bigger audience than YouTube? I know there's a big argument there, but I think if they would have put it on TV, it would have raised the credibility of it. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, look at this. This is on TV now. Let's take it seriously. But also, what comes with that is also the negativity. So as soon as it came out, like you say, Tommy, there's new people watching, Snooker 19 that have probably never seen it before. There are people that made it very clear that this is, not their thing, and they don't like it because it's not real. People just need it to be real. And then I saw a few odd Twitter comments and said, I've been really enjoying the virtual snooker actually. So it was a big divide. So yeah, I think if they'd have put it on TV, you just would have got more of that. You know what I mean? You would have got more of the good and more of the bad. But it's just so tough. I just never thought it would be on TV. It's such a tall ask. TV's so expensive, and basically what drives TV is are people going to watch the program that you're going to put on, because the channel wants to know how many people are going to view it so they can sell adverts or whatever. And on the BBC it's a bit different, but it's a very expensive game. When things get to broadcast, the licensing agreements are different. It changes the game, because the World Championship is a BBC tournament, but David Hendon is doing the commentary on the game, but he's tied with Eurosport, so it's like this weird concoction of different license agreements and all sorts of craziness that you have to get into. So I never thought it would be on TV. I think it was just it was a bit of an experiment. So it's not like I'm giving them a hard time, but I forgive them because it was the first time. Mm-hmm. I forgive them because it was probably last minute. I think it was like probably about 2-3 weeks in advance this was planned. Well, we played our games about 2 weeks before it went out, but before that, like, it was about a week or two, and then that was it. The fact that it happened is like what I'm grateful for, that World Snooker even put it out there at all. The fact that they put, like, they asked me to do interviews with each of the players and put them on the actual YouTube channel and their Twitter was pretty amazing to me. I didn't expect them to do that. So I think that it happened at all. I'm grateful that it happened. Mm-hmm. But I feel like at the start they could have got into it. I feel like they went in the whole thing with one foot You know what I mean? 1 foot in the bath kind of thing. They just went, well, we'll see how it goes. And then they didn't just jump in. And I felt like if they did just jump in, put 2 commentators on it, you know, whether it would be David and Joe, and go full force and make a feature of each player, make more of a thing of the player, not the professional player as well. You know what I mean? Like really go into it. I feel like they didn't. They dipped their toes in it and went, this is actually kind of working. Now let's get David involved now, which is the way I suppose you should do it. But you know, it's a tricky thing because like it's you never know how people are going to respond to this, and I think generally people responded well. So.
Yeah, I think they did as well. I really do think they did. So on to the next topic, which will be our final topic before we have a little break to listen to a little interview that Joe's put together. And here we're going to talk about the exclusivity of the tournament. The tournament was just on PS4, so it was only open to PlayStation 4 players.
Ooh, I could hear the anger in your voice, Toby.
No, not at all. No.
Not at all. No, I was trying to create some drama, you know, like that because
have Toby go flying through the internet to strangle you there, Chinny.
Yeah. I heard like YouTube drama is like really good on the ratings, so I was trying to create some hype, Toby. You know.
Well, we'll get that a bit later. I'd like to say, okay. So it was just on the PS4. I'm going to try and stay calm. Just on the PS4, 16 players invited. I think more of the topic is because we all know we don't really need to discuss that it was on the PS4. It wasn't on the Xbox, wasn't on the Switch, wasn't on the PC. That's fairly obvious. And I think that we'd all say that the PS4 was the best console for it to be on. Ultimately, the best PS4, the best snooker players, snooker 19 players as a group are on PS4. Now, please don't shoot me Xbox One side, but it's clear from that roster of 16 that there were clearly 16 great players over on the PS4. Now, you've only got to look at the Betfred World Championship online tournament on the Xbox One to see that perhaps there isn't that quality. I've seen the leaderboards for the PS4 stuff on from Joe, and it differs a lot to the Xbox One. I think that the standards definitely better in that PS4 community. So rather than talking about bickering whether it should have been on the PS4, whether it should have been on the Xbox One, do you think that potentially, and this was an idea that was put forward in an interview that we're gonna listen to, not the four of us because we've already heard it, but what everybody else is going to listen to in a couple of minutes' time. But a very interesting idea was put forward that potentially in the future we could have this virtual world championship, but play it at the Crucible. Now, don't worry, it's not going to be virtual in terms of it's not virtual and we scrap it, and Chinny and Joe are going around the table with their cues getting a break of 20 or 30 at a time,
which would be 20 or 30 more than the rest of the players in the tournament, might I?
True. That's why I picked the two of you. See, I knew that would be the case. It would be the best match to start with. But is there a chance that potentially they could set up 16 screens at the Crucible and the best 16 players? You know, you qualify through a system a little bit like with the Formula One esports. You qualify and you get invited to the studio. All the rigs are set up there for you to go and play. Do you think that would be a better idea, or because obviously the exclusivity of the PS4 console mean that people dip out, and obviously this time next year, fingers crossed, hopefully this pandemic the effects have very much gone and lockdown is over, etc. So obviously people aren't going to have the time to sit it. I know that it was a struggle, particularly for you, Joe. It's a balancing act really with YouTube and all the other things going on in your life, particularly with this virtual world championship going on. But just to stop me rambling, basically, do you think it would be a good idea next year to potentially get 16 people all in the same place? What do you think, Tom?
Well, my first question is, if it is on Switch and PC and Xbox and PS4, does that mean Chinny gets to enter 4 times?
Yes.
It's a good shout, to be honest. That's not a bad idea, actually.
Just for the money I've put into it alone.
Get 4 copies of the game and 4 consoles and the controllers to go with it.
Yeah. It's a lot of money.
But I'd like to believe they could do that thing with all those screens, but I don't see it happening. I don't think we can compare it to Formula 1, but snooker is not as big as Formula 1, either as a sport or as a video game. That's why we had basically, 8 years without a snooker video game, basically 10 years without a updated, 09 was basically the last time we had a snooker game that was a proper step up, I think. So we had basically 10 years without a proper snooker game, whereas F1's been every year, and I think that shows the gap between the two sports. Kimi Raikkonen gets paid £10 million a year, whatever he does, whereas the very best snooker players in the world are lucky to get $500,000 unless you're Judd Trump or Neil Robertson. So
very good point.
Or Ronnie O'Sullivan. So I think it's maybe not big enough for them to do that. I would also wonder if they tried to do the 16 screen things, would that be a disadvantage? Would that stop people like Geometrico, like Maditude, who live in Belgium and France? Would that mean they would not be able to enter because they wouldn't be able to travel to the UK? So I'd like to think they could do it, maybe after a much bigger qualification process. But whether they do or not, I'm skeptical, because if they're not even going to release a snooker 20, I don't know why they would suddenly put a lot of money into doing a much bigger tournament next year, if you know what I mean.
So that's the end of the first part of the show. Now, Joe, my co-host, managed to get a big scoop of an interview with Scott Edwards, who represented Mark Selby in the tournament, the man who won the tournament. So this is 15 minutes between Joe and Scott Edwards, also known as RainyLamb. A very interesting interview before we continue with the second half of the show. So grab your popcorn, grab your drinks, etc., and listen in to what the champions got to say all about the tournament.
So here we are, joined by the virtual world champion RainyLamb, or otherwise known as Scott. So hello Scott, how are you doing?
Hi Joe, I'm good, thanks mate.
Very good. How does it feel in your first few days being a virtual world snooker champion?
It's unreal, mate. Still main feeling is relief to actually get the job done. But yeah, no, I've had some nice messages on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, etc. So yeah, it's going well.
Yeah, and you speak about those messages, and one very special one from Mark Selby just after the tournament. So how did that feel? Have you had any other contact with him, or was it just?
Yeah, that was really nice. That was the second video he did for me, and yesterday did an interview for BBC Radio Leicester, and they got him on the call as well. So we had a bit of a chat. I think that's going out over the weekend sometime.
That's fantastic. Was it surreal talking to him?
It was, yeah. It's a really nice guy. Some really nice words he said again as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've got to admit, I think overall the players have been really, really positive about the tournament, and I think that's something that we'll definitely talk about a lot throughout the podcast. But did you ever think that you were going to win it? Truthfully.
Yes, if I'm honest, but also with that, because I think I was probably the favourite for the tournament at the start, before the draw was made, there was that extra burden on me as well of just trying to get the job done. So I was a little bit less confident once the draw was made, because I thought that half the draw was pretty stacked, but no, very happy.
No, definitely. I think, looking at that half of the draw, to come through that, anyone deserves to win it, really, don't they? If with yourself in there, obviously Halborn, the only man to make a century in the tournament, so that says a lot about him. And certainly more the names that I recognised as sort of outside of the hardcore players community were in that side of the draw, so I was very happy to be on the other side. But well, there you go. So, linking to that then, what did you think of the standards of the players in the tournament, and particularly those that you were up against?
I thought overall it was decent. Yeah, I thought there was quite a few two visit wins, if you like, so sort of averaging 30-40 breaks and things like that, which is decent because Master Plus is quite new to a lot of players. And obviously there's probably only about a week's practice just before, so everyone was still getting used to it. Obviously Halborn made that cracking 131. I think there were quite a few 70s, 80s, a couple of 90s in there as well, so yeah, overall pretty good.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with you there. you know, I think what people sort of don't realise is most of us don't play on Master Plus day in, day out. So
exactly, and I'd like to throw into that as well, Joe, that obviously with it being, especially the first couple of rounds, best of 3, there was so much added pressure to get the job done, and you make a mistake and that could be you out the tournament in half an hour. So the pressure of that and the nerves that everyone was having as well, I think, especially in those first couple of rounds, didn't really help the sort of looking for centuries and all that sort of thing. So
yeah, because I think going into the tournament, people thought, well, you know, they've got an aim and aid on, it's all going to be dead easy. But what people didn't factor in was that pressure, and for us, you know, presumably we're never going to get the chance to actually win a real world championship. So this might be the only chance we ever get of winning a world championship in snooker. So the pressure was immense, certainly on my side. And I know you spoke in your interviews with Chinny a lot about the nerves, and
100%. Both the semi and the final, that deciding frame, like I've said a couple of times, if I'd have picked the white up with my hand and pull it down, I'd have still been out of position. I was just really struggling with the pressure and the nerves.
You mentioned the length of the matches there, so it was best of 3 in round 1 and the quarterfinals, and then it moved up to best of 5 for the semi-final and the final. What are your thoughts about the length of matches, and would you have changed anything about that?
I thought it worked okay in the end. Again, I think people need to appreciate the tournament was pretty short notice, and obviously with the guys from Ripstone, etc., working from home and having to edit the footage that we sent them together, then obviously there's timescales to all that. Ideally, I would have liked sort of first 2 rounds best of 5, and then maybe move up best of 7 and best of 9 for the final. But still, even those last 2 rounds, like my semi and final, were both 2.5 hours. So
yeah, I think my quarterfinal was pretty long as well. It was an hour and 40 minutes for 3 frames. So, you know, I think a lot of people sort of said, oh, we want best of 19 from round 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
And, you know, that would have just been an absolute logistical nightmare. You know, if you had half an hour frames for that, you're looking at, you know, 9.5 hours for a match time, which, because of the way Snooker 19 works, you would have to almost record all of that in one go. You know, I suppose the way we did it, doing it as 1 frame matches, we could have maybe sorted something out, but it would have just been an absolute nightmare, and we'd probably need to start now if we were to go and get those lengths of matches for next year.
Exactly, yeah, 100%, yeah.
Like, I think we sort of forget snooker players when they're at the tournament, that's kind of all they're doing, apart from their media commitments and whatever, but actually we had to fit all of this around real life and working from home and whatever, so yeah, length of matches was I think they got it about right in the end, but as you say, a couple of frames either side I think would have worked.
Yeah, definitely, totally agree.
Well. So you sort of mentioned Ripstone and WST there, and maybe the short notice that we had of the tournament, but overall, do you think it was well organised? Do you think there's any way that they could improve that in the future?
No, I think they did really well. Like we said, it was a really short notice. Obviously, people working from home as well, including them, so they're not in their office. I think if you look at the bigger picture of what's going on and the scenario that everyone was in, I think they did a very, very good job.
No, I think they did, and to get the players on board all from home as well was really sort of well done. And
exactly, and we as players were all really well supported by the guys in the Discord organising it, etc. So
yeah, because there was a couple of instances where something happened in matches, whether it be somebody's footage not saving or whatever, and this could have been at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and we would just send a message to Holly or Jamie who work for Ripstone, and they would be back to you within 15-20 minutes, which is crazy to think they were working well out of their normal working hours just to help this run as smoothly as possible.
Exactly.
So a big thumbs up to them at Ripstone. So, speaking of the future then, do you think we will see more of these tournaments? And, with that, how frequent would you like to see them? And what can we do to make this bigger and better?
Yeah, well, I think they will do more. wouldn't surprise me if the next one they do for Xbox, because obviously this one was just limited to PlayStation 4. And I know like a lot of the Xbox guys were talking about that and having a bit of a grumble, which is understandable. What I would like them to do is maybe think about doing similar sort of thing for the Triple Crown events initially, because I think doing it for all the events is a bit much.
Agreed.
But for the big ones, then yeah, I think that could go down really well. But like I say, obviously they got to look at all the platforms as well rather than just PlayStation. But I think initially for this one, again, because it was short notice as well, PlayStation has got the biggest player base, so it was probably the easiest one to try and get hold of people short notice and get it organised, etc. So.
And also the nature of how we recorded our footage and whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know how easy it is on Xbox, admittedly, but I know it is very easy on PlayStation, and maybe that's what swayed it for them in the end, as well as you say, the bigger player base. Obviously, we don't know what the world situation is going to be like, but do you think maybe bringing all of the 16 players, if it is, together on a platform, on whatever console it is, would maybe be the way to do it in the future? Obviously, once we haven't got
crossplay,
social,
etc. Do you mean?
It's just, if we all went to, say, the Crucible and they set up 16 PlayStations, Xboxes, PCs, whatever they wanted to do, and we all played from there, sort of to eliminate the I play PS4 or I play Xbox. But if you bring all of the participants to one place and give them a console, if you like, to do it, do you think that could be something that they look at doing?
Yeah, I think you'd still get the arguments about which console do you play the end part of it on, but potentially you could be looking at, say, the run a tournament on each, get your finalist and winner from each one, and you've got four platforms, so that's 8 players, so that's a quarterfinal straight away. So it's a pretty good way of doing it, and it involves everybody, even the Nintendo Switch lot, who seem to get forgotten a lot when it comes to Snooker 19. So that would be really good. So sort of looking forward to the Crucible in real life, and obviously both you and Mattitude or Benny are going to get the pleasure to come along to the Crucible, and obviously you've got a very special moment being presented with a trophy. Now I don't know whether it's going to be a replica of the world trophy or just a little sort of memoir of what you've achieved, but how do you feel about that and receiving that in the Theatre Dreams? I cannot wait. Cannot wait. That came up in the conversation with Mark Selby, and he was saying that he thinks the tournament will go ahead, but behind closed doors, which would be a bit of a shame, because he was talking about the actual moment of receiving something there with an audience is just amazing. But even behind closed doors, the experience of like going to meet some of the players and watching a little bit and getting presented with it, it'd just be amazing. So
I think we're all very jealous of that. So, I'm sure you'll enjoy it, and maybe even rub it in our faces a little bit. But it'll be a fantastic event, even if it is behind closed doors, as you say.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what's next for RainyLamb then?
Well, I'm having a little break at the moment. I've got to be honest, since the final, I've not really played the game at all. But I think I'm going to be looking at a bit of streaming. Try and increase my YouTube, jumping into yours, into Chinny's, into Halborn's, etc., because we've all got our channels that we're streaming. A lot of the other participants in the tournament have just started using it, whether it's YouTube or Twitch as well. So I think that's the next thing. Obviously, I don't know if I'm going to play the online tournaments as much as I did. I haven't decided yet. Like I said, I'm just having a bit of a break at the moment. So streaming something I was just starting to get into before this. So I think I might push on that a little bit now.
Sounds good. And we'll all try and share your channel as much as we can to try and get you going on it, so to speak. And that'll be brilliant. So just to finish off then, what would you say, put me teacher hat on here, we're always told 2 positives and and an improvement to the pupils. So to WST and to Ripstone and Snooker 19 in general, for this tournament, what are your 2 positives and 1 improvement?
The positives, I think it is bringing the interest in the Master Plus very high. So I know, like in another Discord that I'm in at the moment, some of the Xbox guys have just started their own little tournament in there, and they've never really played before. And plus, that's then going to combat a lot of the negative comments about some of the misses that were made. People actually see how difficult it actually is. As well as that, like I say, just the way it was all ran, a lot of interest in it as well. That was really good. And plus, it gave everyone, even if some were critical, it gave everyone something to watch, didn't it, during a difficult time. So that was really good. Not really much they could have done differently under the circumstances, but I would probably say have some sort of qualifying for it. Because again, I think that was quite a common comment as well. But like I say, current circumstances, there's not really much more they could have done with the short notice, etc. But for another one, I'd like to see some sort of qualifying and maybe more participants in it.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I know you must be very busy with all your media commitments and all of that. And but no, I'm glad you're having a break from the game. I think we all got very sort of involved in the Virtual World Championship, and we all got a bit, frazzled by the end of it. So I can't imagine what it was like actually playing all the way to the end. So no, thank you very much for joining me, and hopefully everybody enjoyed your little interview at home.
Thanks very much, Joe. I'll catch you soon.
Catch you soon. Right, so you've heard the RainyLamb interview, and he obviously had a few interesting things to say. I think one of the things that'll take a lot of people by surprise is the fact that he always thought he was going to win it. And I know, Chinny, you've spoke to RainyLamb. Did you always get that impression from him?
Yeah, I think to be good at anything like a video game or a sport or anything, you have to have an air of confidence about you. It's the same sort of trait that you see in people. Like anybody that's really good at something, they have to believe in themselves. And I feel like the ones that beat themselves up a little bit, like me, probably are doomed because they talk themselves out of it. And he's a good player, so he obviously knows he's a good player, and he's got to go into every match thinking he's going to win, otherwise he doesn't win. And yeah, I think he rides the line very well of being confident but not too arrogant about it. So he's a good guy, Scott.
Yeah, no, definitely got that impression from Scott, and I think beneath the surface, I think he is very happy that, humbled that he's in the position that he is. And I spoke to him about how it feels to be world champion, and I think in a way he's still pinching himself a little bit. And he mentioned he was looking forward to going to the Crucible and meeting up with Mark Selby. Another thing I did chat to him about was his contact with Mark Selby, and he's done a radio interview recently. I don't know whether it'll be out by the time this podcast comes out, but he had a good old chinwag with Mark Selby, and that must have just been completely surreal. So how would you have felt, Tom, if you got a nice chinwag with Judd Trump?
Yeah, it would have been great.
I know you'd have enjoyed it, Joe. You'd have loved it, wouldn't you?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah.
I mean, this is the difficult thing, because I'm not a big fan of Judd Trump, and I had to represent him. And luckily, I was thinking, well, maybe he'll win me over, maybe he'll wish me good luck. But no, luckily he didn't. So I can continue not being a fan, and it's all okay. Like,
Well,
it would have
there you
been nice, obviously, though, if he did get in touch, and if I did win, and he said, congrats. But it's difficult, because is it unfair of me to say I don't think that Judd has that same warmth that Mark Selby has?
Yeah, I think I've said it a couple of times. People have asked me why I'm not the biggest fan of Judd Trump, and if you're listening, Judd, you can still prove me wrong. But
Let's be honest, he isn't, so slag him off. Come on.
He's...
It's Captain Goodspeed uncut.
It's... oh dear. It's slightly... a question of character for me with Judd Trump. I don't think he's got the same personality as, even a Sean Murphy or a Mark Selby. I think what exemplifies that is the recent NHS song that they've done, and Judd Trump as world champion and world number one, and supposedly the new People's Champion is nowhere to be seen on it. As far as I know, I've only watched it once.
I mean, I wouldn't call it a song, but I mean that's a bit far. But
yeah, but you see the likes of Murphy and Selby on there, and they're quite happy to make a fool of themselves, and they've got that little bit of character, that little bit of warmth that I think snooker almost lacks in some ways these days. But yeah, that's just something. So I don't think you're too harsh in saying he hasn't got the warmth of Mark Selby to him.
That's why the final last year was so underwhelming, because for someone to win their first world championship, and he just reacted like someone had just given him a free bag of crisps.
Yeah,
he was just like, yeah, I'm really happy, it's good, I'm going to enjoy these crisps, good. And then that was it. There was no emotion. There was no sort of the best day of my life. Honestly, I think RainyLamb was probably more emotional about winning the virtual championship than Judd was about winning the real thing.
No, 100%. I think it comes from, we were talking about that line with Chinny before, but between being confident in yourself and almost being arrogant. And I think Judd Trump's almost the other side of that. I think he almost expected he was going to win, and it wasn't a big deal to him that he did win, because if you contrast that with Bingham in 2015, and he was just completely shocked that he won it, I suppose, and the same with Mark Williams in 2018. And
Bob Bingham was crying after the semi-final. Mark Williams got his nipples out. They cope with shock in very different ways.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, and you look at the emotion of a Dave Gilbert in the semi-final. I can't take that seriously. But anyway, cut that out, Toby.
No, that's a nice moment. I liked it.
Yeah. Totally forgot what I was saying now. You see the emotion of Gilbert in the semi-final, and I know you said you really felt for him after that defeat to John, and I don't think you'd have that same sort of feeling for Trump.
No, I guess it's humility, and maybe it's just going, oh, that's someone who's a bit more similar to me or my family, whatever, but I just tend, people I tend to have been brought up, knowing and living with, and just who I am myself. I think it's just nice when people are a bit more emotional and a bit more warm and a bit more open, whereas Judd's very, very closed and very
you might just want to have gone some simplicity. I mean, Mark Williams the year before wasn't exactly simple, was he? He was a little bit out there, so just wanted to downplay the occasion a little bit, perhaps. But
how can you downplay winning a world championship?
Yeah.
Well, if anybody can do it, Judd can do it.
And he did do it. He bloody did do it. Compare it to Dennis Taylor in '85. Compare it to all the greats winning it.
Yeah,
And
like people often say Peter Ebdon is completely boring, but he had the Ebdon Raw, and he would do weird things, and
he'd shout vegan power.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and not believe in vaccines. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, he was crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
but he that's the thing. Like, people, said Ebdon was a boring player, which I didn't think he was. And at the very least, he was a personality.
A character, as we said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he did things that made you go, oh, that's a bit funny, that's a bit weird. Whereas Judd's just
until Judd releases a number one single, I think. I think he's lacking a bit.
I have to say, we've really gone on the offensive towards everybody tonight, haven't we?
Yeah,
Judd Trump, David Hendon, I mean, even David Gilbert, Neil Folds, I mean, we're just upsetting everybody here, aren't we? But
hey, Toby, we're not insulting anybody. If you're doing that, then that's up to you. But we're not insulting anybody here. So, but sort of moving on from Judd Trump, going back to what we talked about with Rainy, and he said that one of the big positives coming from the tournament is him seeing more people play on Master Plus and try and challenge themselves on Snooker 19, and actually seeing how damn hard it is to play on that difficulty. And he said he noticed in the Xbox community they were putting together leagues on Master Plus, which wasn't a thing before. So he said he was really happy to see the step up in difficulty and challenge of people taking on the game. So I thought that was interesting. So, moving on from RainyLamb, the great man himself, the defending champion, and sort of moving on to the tournament in general, the gameplay side of it, and the way World Snooker wanted it to go. And linking to what RainyLamb said, first we'll talk about the aim and aid choice. Now, I know both myself and Chinny, and probably you as well, Tom, came into it thinking that it was probably going to be on Pro Plus.
Yeah.
As the default tournament mode. And how did you feel, Chinny, when Holly told you it was
I
going to be
think
on
it was
Master
you that
Plus?
told me.
Oh, it was me. It was me.
Yeah,
there you go.
It was you that said it was Master Plus. So after throwing up for 4 hours, I kind of got over it. When the vomiting stopped and it was just dry heaves, so I was all right. And I was like you, Joe. I was like, I've never played Master Plus ever, so I immediately started playing Master Plus, and I did a couple of live streams on Master Plus. And then as I was getting into it, I was like, actually, it's not that bad. It's not as scary as I thought it would be, and I can kind of see it. It's one of those things where it levels the playing field for the players of the tournament, but Pro Plus is the kind of where you would get maybe more entertaining frames and matches if there were longer matches. If best of threes are just too short, but if there was best of sevens first round and all this sort of stuff, then Pro Plus would be fairer, because you would get the centuries and you'd get a 147 here and there, and you would get the kind of shots that people expect you to get. Whereas in Master Plus, like, people are missing the break, but they don't understand why, and it was just a little bit daunting. So I don't know. I think they made the right choice for the players, but for the audience, they just don't get it, and it's hard to explain why everybody's missing the break. I think almost everybody missed the break, apart from like maybe 2 or 3 people in the whole tournament, and it's like, well, why are these the best players in this tournament? And it's like, well, the break's just a really, really hard shot that you're not always going to get. And so I feel like they made the right choice. It's just a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, it's a tough one, really. I sort of agree exactly with what you said. It was the right difficulty for the players, because we've all played Snooker 19 for over a year, and most of us had scored a break over 140 before the tournament. I think there was only one player, which wasn't you, Tommy. And I know people were having to go at your high break, but there was a high break of 138 in the tournament. So
there we go, in your face.
So yeah, but if we wanted the entertainment value, it would have had to be longer matches, really, because we seen matches go on for 2.5 hours. If it was on Pro Plus, the matches would have probably only lasted half an hour, if that, in a best of 3. So yeah, but talking about the learning curve, and obviously something that myself and Chinny picked up on a lot through the tournament was the power bar and the sweet spot. So Tom, as somebody who again hadn't played Master Plus before the virtual worlds, what do you think about the sweet spot, as we call it, and with that, the punishment that you get if you miss it by 0.1%, for example?
I think it's unrealistic, really, that you can miss it by such a small percentage and it can make you completely miss your shot. Because the fact it can make people miss the break-off, when in real life, I've never missed a break-off playing snooker, playing pool. No one actually misses it. You don't miss it. You might hit it too hard, you might hit it too thick, you might hit it too soft, but you don't miss the break-off. So the fact this element of the game makes it that so many players, really good players, can miss the break-off, I think that's possibly a sign it needs tweaking, and maybe it's a bit too harsh on the players, because it just looks a bit ridiculous when, when they go, oh, it's the top 16 in the world, and then, as you say, probably at least 14 of us missed a break-off or completely missed a ball or did something ridiculous because of the power bar. Which you couldn't always see the power bar either on the WST ones because of the weird borders. The
bobbing up and down of Judd Trump, as we call it.
Yeah, so people couldn't even see the power bar, so they were just like, wow, you've completely missed a break-off. And it's like, no, I haven't missed a break-off, I've missed the reaction speed, that's all it is.
Exactly, and you know, you've hit the nail on the head there. As the tournament went on, and you know, obviously everybody got more and more used to the difficulty, it sort of dawned on me that it was no longer a tournament of the skill of lining up a snooker shot and getting the right amount of power so that you get onto the next ball and the right amount of spin or whatever. It became almost a reaction test, and I think we particularly seen it in one of the semi-finals where I think, you know, both players will admit the standard was pretty poor, but by the standards we came to expect. But it was all due to their reactions just being slightly off. And you know, I think you say it yourself, Tom. It's a bit harsh of a penalty to inflict. We've seen some fantastic safety battles go on for 20-25 shots, and then somebody misses the power bar by an absolute fraction, and they bust the reds open, and it's, you know, pretty much frame over. So, Chinny, what do you think about that? And obviously, Toby, after that, as somebody watching.
Well, I think I don't really necessarily disagree on the safety stuff, because that's what happens in real snooker, is that you will have a safety battle with someone, and then eventually you will either, and I think this was the losing shot for Mattitude on the final, was the losing shot in the final for Mattitude was he hit he clipped a red, and he hit another red on the way back up to balk, and that left the table open, and then RainyLamb took advantage of that, and that happens in real snooker. So I don't really mind like missing the power bar on a safety shot here and there, because that's kind of what real safety's like. You have a battle and somebody eventually slips up or does something, and then they either hit the ball too thick or they miss it, or you know, or snooker someone, and that's those. So the safety battles kind of pan out in very similar to real snooker, but where the main problem with the power bar is that you know, for a thin pot, it becomes a little bit unrealistic, because you probably would hit the ball, but for a break off is where it gets really silly, because you know, like people aim for the last ball on the break, and it's likely that people are going to miss it. So yeah, it's just the break off where it bothers me with the power bar. I get it; it does come to just become a quick time event video game where you just have to hit the up analog stick on the right time, but the safety battles I thought were quite good, you know, and it really, I think you said very early on that the game will become who can play the best safety, and that's pretty much what happened. And but the safety battle was quite realistic. I mean, it was a little long, but you know, it was just the way it was. But you know, we've seen safety battles like that on TV, so I was quite happy with the safety play. It's just the break off. It's just so embarrassing, and we kind of know, we all know why it's like that. Everybody who plays Snooker 19 or certainly on Master Plus, we all know why we're missing it. But people just aren't going to be that kind when they just don't know the game, so it's just going to make everything look a bit silly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. And I think the safety battles, as you say, were pretty realistic. I think we commentated on them, and we really complimented pretty much everyone's safety in the tournament was top notch by the end. Yeah, but as you say, it's just embarrassing for the people that don't necessarily know the game as much, and also just people generally watching, not necessarily involved in the tournament. Yourself, Toby, how did you feel watching the very first match and Binny Boy missing the break off?
I mean, that was a very nice welcome, wasn't it, to the tournament? That very first shot of, oh no, he's missed the break off. We were all looking forward to the start of the event, and then it's the sudden face palm that we were talking earlier. Rob Walker introduced him, we're really excited, and the first frame, Jan Bing Tao to break. He's missed the Reds. I mean, that was the ultimate face palm moment. But just to say about the aiming aid, it was a really tricky choice because we talked about the advantages and disadvantages of Master Plus, but I think that what we haven't touched on is that if Pro Plus was used, I feel like it would just be a case of who gets in first. It's a case of what sort of realism, what image do you want to portray of the game, because pretty much everybody in that tournament on Pro Plus would generally, in certainly a decent chance, get a frame winning visit if they got to the table. So do you want that game where as soon as somebody makes a small mistake, which is very easy even on Pro Plus in safety, you leave one red on, and okay, they're not easy to knock in, but leave a red in the right position and it's cuttable and you get your first pot, and you all know yourselves that generally if you get lucky you can bust all the reds open and that's tar-tar to the rest of the frame. But on Master Plus there's always that chance that it's not going to happen. Even if you bust them all open, you genuinely might not win the frame, which leaves that bit of uncertainty, which I think we all love. There's nothing worse than seeing a frame and the first red's potted, then you pot the black, bust all the reds open, and that's it. It's just like, oh. Well,
that sounds like Chinny's match, Toby. That sounds like Chinny's match. Do you have any recollection of that, Chinny?
No, I've wiped it from all memory.
I see. Yeah.
I think we all have him in respect. But I think in fairness, I think Master Plus was probably the right choice because they were probably trying to portray the whole tricky, the complexity of the Crucible, and although it was a bit of and may I say, commercial failure, because it looked like, especially from that first shot, and that was a cracking example you gave, that, oh dear, he's missed the break off, that's absolutely dreadful. From a gameplay point of view, Master Plus was definitely the best one to pick, because the standard of play, yes, it would have been far better on Pro Plus, definitely, but again, it would just be a matter of who got in first, and with such short matches, there's just no point to that. If it was a match over 19 frames, then okay, I think ability and skill would start to show, but over 3 frames, Christ, if it's just a matter of who gets in first, that would throw up some pretty interesting results. And if you're looking for somebody who's going to be a world champion, then maybe somebody who perhaps didn't deserve it because their longevity wasn't perhaps so good would get it. So I think as somebody watching, for the watching experience, to answer the original question, it was a little bit daunting, especially as somebody, if I was to show somebody and go, right, this is snooker, and they go, well, why the hell did they miss those balls on the first shot? But from a gameplay point of view, I completely understand why they did it.
I'm going to say something a little controversial here.
Now, go on.
Which wouldn't be the first time, but I think picking Master Plus for the spectacle of not knowing what's going to happen in the matches, I think that was a complete fluke on Ripstone and WST's behalf. I think from their point of view, we were 16 of the best players that have played for a year or whatever. I think they probably thought we were at the standard where we could knock in really good breaks on Master Plus, which we can, given the right chance, but I think it was a complete fluke that it threw up this variation and the idea that any pot could be missed. I don't even think that thought crossed WST's mind or Ripstone when they decided that. Bit controversial, but that's the way I think of it.
Maybe, but you'd think they'd know their own game.
Yeah, I think they know their game, and I think that they also think that the 16 players that they picked were capable of probably a lot more.
I think you're dead right. I do. I think you're dead right. I agree with that. I haven't thought about that before, but I do think you are dead right, because in any video game, I mean, perhaps you could say that some of the people from Ripstone should have been perhaps more aware of the difficulty of Master Plus, but even them would think that, well, I've not been through the hardest difficulty on our game. Surely these 16 people, or supposedly these 16 best, because that was the, I think, rather unfortunate tagline that was given, especially by some people watching it. I'm just going to continue by the
number one seed Toby speaks up there.
I'm gonna. I
was world number one.
But would you not agree that being one of the best 16 players put an immense amount of pressure on you? And when you potted that, I feel really horrible bringing it up actually. But you know what shot I'm on about? Is that the shot of a? Is that the shot of a top 16 player?
That's the shot of. I mean, people can say that, but I contest that people could watch Stuart Bigham failing the free miss rule and go, "Is that the play of a top 16 player?"
Mm.
I think the joy
response.
of
very good.
People could watch Ronnie O'Sullivan against James Cahill and go, "Is that the shot of a top 16 player?" Which it wasn't, because he wasn't great. So I think, I think that was. I mean, it's a shot I never would have done on Pro Plus. So it was the shot of. Basically, it was the shot of a top 16 player, but someone had taken my cue and replaced it with a banana. They've changed my equipment, so I didn't know what I was doing.
Not exactly the best analogy there, but okay, we'll roll with it.
So we've talked about the aim and aid at length, and threw up the controversial opinion that
very controversial, controversial.
I think it was a fluke, but anyway, so sort of branching off from that, what did all three of you think of the standard of play throughout the tournament? I know myself and Chinny had the pleasure of, agony of commentating on every one of the matches throughout the tournament. So, Chinny, I'll go with you first.
Yo.
What do you think of the overall standard of play throughout the tournament?
It was a mixed bag for me. I think it's a weird one. I think because there are players that are way better than, dare I say it, yourself. Well, not way better, but Joe and Tommy. I think there's J Page, Martin, and Zeta Swoon, who are very, very good players, really, really good players. And they didn't even get through the first round. So, it's like, I think there's an element of who holds their bottle better than it. Because I think Ronnie says this he said this in interviews. It's like, everybody, all these snooker players are all brilliant players, but like it's who holds their bottle better, because they can all knock in pretty much like frame ending breaks all the time in practice, but it's who doesn't bottle it on the day. And I know the stakes are lower, but I was quite nervous playing my match, and like these could play, like J Page Martin, who's always in the top 16 in the leaderboards on Snooker 19's tournament mode. He's obviously a good player. A lot of people were saying like he's got a good chance. He didn't even make it because maybe he just the other player played better and all that sort of stuff, but there's an element of just nerves, and some people just didn't hold it. So it's a mixed bag of like, you got the likes of myself who probably got entered because of all that YouTube cash that I get, but also you've got players who are in there because they are genuinely really good Snooker 19 players, and some of the good players bottled it, and some of the sort of YouTuber players got through. So it's like a bit of a mixed bag. But I think towards the semi-finals and definitely on the final, we got a really, really good. As they went on, the matches got higher quality in terms of like, okay, these are really, really good players now. I just wish I could give a better show, but what can you do when you play Halborn?
Couldn't agree more with what you said there, and I think we said it at the time. whoever's going to hold themselves together, whoever's going to play the best safety shots. Any one of us could have knocked in a sentry break given the right opportunity, given the right circumstances, but it was who produced it on the day. And I know certainly myself, I bottled it at the end of my quarter-final match, and Chinny, you didn't even really get a chance
I just didn't get a chance, you know what I mean? I didn't even get a look in, which was my thing, but I was nervous though, and I messed up a shot, like a safety shot, and at the time when I was playing my match, I was like, I thought that was the standard of all the games. I thought everybody was going to get this kind of treatment, and then I realised that some of the other matches actually wasn't. You
realised that you would have killed a man, Chinny. Yeah,
I would have killed a man, and like the other people, I got 1 or 2 chances in my frames, but other people got like 3 or 4, which I was really shocked about. I thought people would get way less chances than that, but it's just. But that's a tournament, isn't it? You get seeded and you get put in the place that you put in, and that's the way it works. So. Doesn't really bother me too much.
Well, that was interesting actually, wasn't it? Because there was that one side of the draw which you looked at. It was your side, Chinny, I think, with Halborn and RainyLamb in there as well. And you looked at that side of the tournament and you thought, oof, bloody hell.
Yeah,
not that the other side of the tournament wasn't full of good players. I'm not trying to suggest anything here, but like you've just inferred there, against these players you had 1, maybe 2 chances. It would be fascinating if maybe you're on that other side of the draw, just to know where you'd have got to. I mean, for example, Mattitude was substituted with you, maybe we wouldn't have seen how brilliantly he played. I mean, he was a player I'd never heard of before, and especially in his match against Joe, I thought, oh my God, what a player we've got here. I mean, the standard he played against Joe was unbelievable. I know Joe was really cut up about his match afterwards, but honestly, I thought that Mattitude would have beaten anyone on that day, whether it was Joe or whether it was the best player on Snooker 19, whoever you think that was, because the quality of his safety was just unbelievable. And if he wasn't given that chance in the first round, it would have been so interesting not that he hadn't been given that chance. It's so great that somebody like that was given a chance just to throw up something a little bit different. And that's the beauty of snooker altogether, and especially with this Virtual World Championship, that players that... Because when it was announced and your average Joe who knew a little bit about the community would have gone, well, RainyLamb's going to win this tournament. And I know he did. I know that very much contradicts what I'm trying to say here. But for Mattitude to get to the final was something that, before the tournament, I'd never heard of him. So for him to get all the way to the final is a massive achievement, I think. And it's shown somebody else who's a cracking player. But all 16 players are cracking, of course, and I just really enjoyed watching some of the matches. Some of the matches, as you say, some of the matches were peculiar, but I think the standard of play was only because the players who... I don't think it's a case of being weaker, I just think it's a case of... I don't think it's a case of being sensible either. I just think some players went for things more. Some players were... perhaps had the confidence, had the balls to just go for it, and when that didn't work out... they were perhaps seen as weaker, but I just think some people were unlucky. If they'd potted 1 ball or 2 balls and started to get things right, just got that bit of luck with the aiming aid that sometimes we just have. Sometimes you're just on it and you can't really control that. And if they'd been given that opportunity, I just don't think there was that bad a standard of play. It's just that in real life, that pot that such and such missed would always be potted, so it reflects on somebody badly. But I think that perhaps just because somebody missed 1 pot, that, bear in mind, in game is a hell of a lot tougher. I mean, those cut shots in game are an absolute swine, whereas those cheap blues are a lot easier in game. So I think that's the problem with the public perception. I think the standard of play was very good, to be honest, from somebody who knows the game, and I'm sure you guys probably think so too.
Well, I think... Yeah. Sorry, Chinny, you go ahead, mate.
No, you're going to carry on, mate.
Well, I think there will be some people who... Well, there were some people who did say... oh, these guys, they're not all the top 16. These guys, like, there were a few people I saw who went, oh, you've just invited some YouTubers. These guys aren't the top 16. But then
these were the same people who were saying bust the Reds open. When you were having a safety battle, oh, open up the Reds, just pot something for God's sake. I genuinely think these people... I think this is the problem with broadcasting it on YouTube and getting your typical people going, oh, this is crap, just for the sake of it. Because the same people who were saying that these players are rubbish were the same people who were saying through a safety battle, which obviously is a massive part of snooker, oh, just bust the Reds open.
But do you know what the thing is though? Because people will say these weren't the top 16, and I'm like, yeah, they probably weren't the top 16, but the real world championships is not the top 32. You have the top 16, then you have another 16. You know, like last year we had Luo Honghao, who was ranked like 89 or something. You had Michael Giorgio. You have all these players.
You had
who
James Cahill, who was an
amateur.
amateur. You know.
Yeah, you have James Cahill, who, as you say, was an amateur. Sean Murphy won it when he was ranked 58. Like, snooker is not based on just going, let's get the top 16 ranked on the PS4 leaderboards and put them in there. You need those wild cards. You need those surprises. And yeah, some of them will be Michael Giorgio and lose 10-1. Some of them will get whitewashed like, Hong Hao did. But some of them will be a James Cahill and they'll beat Ronnie O'Sullivan. Some of them will be Sean Murphy, they'll win the championship. So you need that element of surprise. You need those wild cards. You need those underdogs. Otherwise, if everyone played like Rory and Judd Trump, it'd be so boring.
Yeah, and you know that we could have a whole discussion about snooker 19 in general in the career mode, how it simulates.
That's part 2.
You know, the same players to that win every tournament. It is boring. You know, the beauty of actual snooker is that you have the variation in results. You can have a Jimmy Robertson winning the European Masters or whatever,
or a Rory McLeod knocking Judd Trump out in 2017.
Or an Anthony Hamilton winning the German Masters, you know. Crazy results like that you know, you would never expect to happen, but that's the beauty of sport. And we always, as humans, generally back either the person that is the ultimate best or the underdog. You know, we're very split like that as humans. And that, you know, I think that's... but I think we've had a really good chat about the standard of playing. You know, I think overall it was pretty good, but there was some shockers like you would see in real snooker, and you know, sometimes you just don't feel it, and you do play worse. And I've noticed that with snooker 19. Some days I wake up and I make 2 147s in a row. Some days I can't make a 20 break. It's just the way it goes. It's like real snooker that way.
Definitely, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing about the sport though. Like this, we had Matthew, who in the semi-final played quite poorly, and then in the final was arguably the best player. He was amazing. And that's just like real snooker, when, you know, Rory McLeod played a blinder to knock out Judd Trump, and then in the next match I think he got thrashed something like 13-3. He got absolutely caned. Yeah, and that's sport. That's how sport goes sometimes.
I mean, it happened in the final last year, didn't it? Where the first session of the World Championship final, John Higgins and Trump were going blow for blow in the first 8 frames, and I think there was some crazy like 4 or 5 centuries in that session.
Yeah.
And then Higgins didn't play anywhere near his best for the rest of the match, and Trump took it to another level. So even through that match, you've seen such huge swings in momentum and form, and I think that is something that is replicated in the game weirdly, and it's all in the head. It's all in the head because you know, we can all probably line up a pot. It's just, you know, sometimes you take your eye off the pot and focus on the cannon. I do that a lot. I'm sure other people do, and it's crazy how these things can happen. But one more sort of contentious issue about the tournament before we sort of bring round our general thoughts was the length of the matches. Now, it's obviously started at best of 3 in round 1 and the quarter-final, and then it moved up to the mammoth total of best of 5 for the semi-final and final. What was your thoughts on that, Chinny, as somebody that had to commentate on it all?
Well, yeah, I think the final, I'd have been fine with it, because logistically it's really difficult to make it longer. It's tough. It was really tough, because you've got to send the files, and then they've got to put them together, and they've got to do it in a realistic timeline, and you're asking people to do it and for no reason other than just the love of doing it and tracking that. And yeah, and then you've got David Hendon commentating on that as well as an added thing for the final. So I can see why they made the match length the way they were. But I think if they'd have just changed the final to like a best of 7, which they didn't do, and it was still a best of 5, I probably wouldn't have had a massive problem with the whole thing. I can see why people want longer matches, because it does reflect. And I'm probably a victim of a short match problem. Do you know what I mean? Like if I'd have had a longer match, you know, I took one frame from Halborn, but maybe I would have figured out a way to kind of, okay, this is the way Halborn plays, and these are the shots that he doesn't like, and maybe I would have calmed down. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that's what long matches do. So I say that as I'm probably somebody that would have benefited from longer matches, but I just don't think it was realistic, to be honest. Apart from the final, they could have made that best of 7.
Yeah, it was logistics really. You know, I think I said this to RainyLamb in the interview. You know, if we were to have proper best of 19s and best of 25s, best of 35 for the final, we'd probably have to start now recording the matches if we were to get it ready for next year, because, you know, having to record it one frame at a time, just the way Snooker 19 works, it's not set up for those sort of long matches, because you can't save matches, or online matches at least, you can't save them part way through. I think if there was a system in place where after 4 frames, you know, you could, or after any number of frames, you could save it and come back to it later, I think it would lend itself more. But then the file sizes would be ridiculous, wouldn't they, for 35 frames? I know certainly, you know, the final frame of the whole tournament was well over an hour, and that's 2 files straight away, the way that we recorded it on PS4, and you just using so much data and uploading that, and the logistics of it would be absolutely shocking, I think, for the length of matches. But it would have been nicer maybe to have a best of 5 in the first round, just give people more of a chance, because some people didn't get you know, a look in, and didn't get a chance to show the world what they're made of. But I suppose that's the reality of modern snooker, apart from the World Championship. So yeah, that's the way it goes. I think
for me, like it's things that they can improve on. You know, if they can include a cross-platform play on a sequel, whether that's just Snooker 2021, that solves the problem of PlayStation only, so that you can nip that one in the bud. And then, you know, options of doing more than just best of 5, best of 7, best of 35s, and you can save your progress on the frames. You can change the difficulty for different people and the aim and aid for different people. Just more options and more flexibility on the multiplayer. But you know, they just don't have that in Snooker. It's just not built for that, is it? Just we're doing something where it's not really built for it. So yeah, it's going to suffer.
No, I totally agree with you. I actually said this to Rainy off camera, I think, about the use of PS4, and I wonder whether it was because of the ease that you can record your gameplay from a PS4. I know you've got an Xbox, Chinny and Toby. I don't know how easy it is to record stuff from the Xbox itself. Okay.
It's the same, pretty much. Yeah, I think the reason why they play the PS4 is you look at the leaderboards on the PS4, it goes over 1,000, and on the Xbox it goes up to 500. You know, and that's it. You know, more people bought the game. They have the figures on the PlayStation than they did on the Xbox, and they go with the most. You know, the biggest install base with the console. PlayStation 4 has the biggest install base, as the most people that own a PlayStation 4 in the UK. Most potential sales. Like Ripstone's job is to sell Snooker 19, is to make it, put it in people's faces so people will buy it. There's a reason why it went half price during this whole tournament. And the lowest hanging fruit is people with PlayStations. There's more people with PlayStations that don't own Snooker 19 than any other console. You know what I mean? Like there's, you know, and they just know that there's people out there that, oh, I've got a PlayStation. Oh, I like Snooker. Oh, I never even thought about it. Oh, it's half price. I've had a lot of people who listen to my podcast and my friends go, oh, I saw it half price. I bought it. You know what I mean? Who don't? Like my brother bought it. My mate, my business partner bought it. Like I know people that just bought it because they saw me kept on banging on about it, and it was half price. It was like a double whammy of like, oh, it's in the zeitgeist, and also it's a lower price, so why not? So that's why they went for PlayStation. But if they just did crossplay, it's just, I know it's not like just a switch, but I also know that it's not too difficult to do, because a lot of developers have spoke very openly about how pretty easy it is to do. But the whole multiplayer on Snooker 19 is just a bit jank anyway. You know what I mean? You have to put in a code, which is just crazy. It's just we're making Snooker 19 do something that nobody intended it to do. And I think they're quite. You know, we haven't really had a snooker game in the era of YouTube where people are going to make YouTube videos about it, and it probably, you know, took them out of nowhere. It probably sniped them, you know, from the side, saying, "Oh God, I didn't really actually think people would make whole like YouTube videos about this whole game," and gone, "Oh yeah, we should have done a better job on that." But I think it was just tacked on, and you know, local multiplayer was the focus, and they probably didn't think about it too much that people would make videos on YouTube about Snooker 19, but there's an audience for it because no one does.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And you know, I interviewed the game director, Justin Forrest, you know, at the time of release, and we talked at length about the online. And
that feels like God, that's crazy. Over a year ago now, that's frightening.
Yeah. You know, we talked at length about the online, and if you remember, there was no option to have multiple frames online back then. You know, I think it's only best of 7 that's available now, and even then we didn't use it for the tournament. We just did best of 1s, which
and I still don't know why they didn't let that happen either.
Yeah, I in all honesty, I think it's because they don't trust their own servers, and
like the things cut out and stuff.
You know, and also the ease of editing as well. You know, they knew where each frame started and each frame ended, so it was probably something to do with that as well, and keep the file sizes down as we mentioned before. But you know, I think. This first Virtual World Championship is something that I hope is the first and not the last, and that we go on from here and make it bigger and better. You know, I've said in my streams, if WST don't do it next year, I'd certainly want to try and put something on. You know, I'm sure you three would love to be involved in that as well.
CaptainGoodspeed World Championship.
You know, I'm sure we can do something for it. But
I'm only entering it if the prize is to meet Joe.
Oh,
do you know what I mean?
You know,
I reckon you give out one of those CaptainGoodspeed business cards.
One of me business cards, yeah.
I hope by then Joe is available as DLC on the game.
Yeah,
I was really hoping that, you know, they might put me in the next game as a bit of an Easter egg, like they did with the F1 games, and they put the one of the esports drivers in there.
Do you reckon you'd be one of the 4 people in the crowd?
Yeah. Like, well, they've put Hazel in there, and they've put Mark Williams as Ginger Mate in there, and you know. Why not me? But no, you know, we've had a really good discussion about the Virtual World Championship, and just to finish off, put me teacher hat on. I did this to RainyLamb. So each of you, I would like 2 positives and 1 improvement for the tournament. So 2 things you think went really well and worked really well, and 1 thing that could be better. So Toby, we'll start with you.
Oh, no pressure there. Well, to start with, this has been a very good discussion. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought this would be a nice half an hour discussion, but lo and behold, we're going to have to cut various bits out because of, well, various reasons I'm sure we're not going to go into. But we've been going for nearly 2 hours, which is quite unbelievable. But something that went really well with the tournament, I think that I'm actually going to say the aiming aid choice. You know, I think that it, like you say, it was a fluke, and I've looked at it as being a bit of a silly choice, but actually in the end I think it worked really well because of the length of matches that they picked, because of that restriction that they put on themselves. Going with Pro Plus would have been a little bit of a disaster because you could have had matches over in very quick amounts of time. You could have had 2 frames in 20 minutes and that would have been it, and you just wouldn't have had the charm of the tournament then. And I think that possibly Master Plus goes a little bit too far the other way because sometimes you can't get a frame done within 45 minutes or an hour just because the various reasons. But I think the aiming aid choice was right in the end. Secondly, I think the promotion was good. I think that some of the elements in there with Rob Walker being in there, we haven't talked about that too much. That was a great addition, something that was very subtly put in, and I think that they did the best they could with putting Rob Walker in. Obviously, you couldn't have the players being introduced officially with the walk-on music, copyright and all that, and the fact that there's not that ability on Snooker 19, and when there is in some of the tournament, it's a little bit clunky anyway. So that's something that they did well. To point out on something that they need to probably do better next time, I think it possibly might well be the length of the matches. But I think I'm actually going to go for the exclusivity fact. I think that it would be very interesting to open up a qualifying, and I think this would be something, a suggestion for Snooker 19 for all of their tournaments they do. I think it would be great to have 2 different tournaments on the game. You have the open tournament, which happens anyway, so that hasn't got to be changed. But I think having an invitational tournament as well, where you have 128 players, right, you sign up for this tournament, you commit to playing in, I don't know, a qualifier, and then you play it like the real tournament. And who knows, you maybe have 128 players who, over the season perhaps, fight for the rankings, and then maybe you set it up like a proper sort of esports system, and that would be something that would be incredible. I know that logistically it'd be a complete nightmare, and you wouldn't have the audience perhaps for snooker for it, but that would be a really great idea, to mirror some of the things that are going on in other sports. That would be absolutely fantastic. So to summarise, what went well, the promotion and the aiming aid choice, and perhaps even better if was what I used when I was in school. It was what went well and even better.
WWWEBI. There
yeah.
we go.
Oh Christ! I really don't want to go back to those days. Jesus Christ, EBI. Oh dear. Anyway, my EBI was the exclusivity.
Tommy.
2 things they did well. I think what they did really well is, and it's linked to the promotion I suppose, but the integration with the real world of snooker, like having all of the pros apart from, I believe, Trump and Ding, all of them, so and that's not a bad ratio really. 14 out of 16 of them had some sort of interaction with the tournament, whether it was retweeting the result of their match or a personal message to their representative, like Bing Tao said good luck to Binny Boy on the first match, and Selby's phoned up RainyLamb, John Higgins emailed Maditude, Mark Allen tweeted you. I think all the pros were really good and they really got into the spirit of things, and that's not happened by accident. I think they will have probably been told by someone at World Snooker, it might be a good idea for you to get in on this, or and I think it's good that they did that and didn't just have it as its own thing on its own. They went, no, we want the real players to get in on this, we want it to be an actual thing. And I think that was I guess there was a lot of hoo-ha about the lack of a creative character in this game, but the fact that we all had to use real pros and we were assigned that pro, it did make it feel like more of an actual event. I don't think people would have followed it as much if it was, in the last 16 is Joe Hannard against, Chinny. I think people would have gone, who?
How dare you? No, I'm joking.
No disrespect, Joe, but I think that did possibly add to it a bit, and I think they integrated it really well.
Totally agree.
Another positive, I suppose, is just another thing in terms of that was just like all the videos on YouTube, the interviews, and they did like the shots of the tournament and all that stuff was just a really nice touch. Another positive I would say would probably be it's kind of not something people have seen, but the sense of community in the Discord and all the players together. We all sort of really supported each other. Everyone was cheering each other on. We all had each other's backs. Everyone was really friendly, and we'd all be watching like Chinny streams, having a chat, and we've all kind of subscribed to each other, followed each other on Twitch. There's been no horrible rivalries. There's been no Kyren versus Trump sort of falling outs. It's all been very friendly, very amicable, very nice, and so that was really lovely to see. But yeah, for the downside, my one thing would be the commentary we mentioned earlier. More so than anything, because like in the first round match there wasn't an atmosphere. Because when you play an online game in Snooker 19, even if it's at the Crucible, it plays it like it's an exhibition match. You have no commentary that goes, okay, we're here for the last 16 of the championship. You have none of that. So none of the commentary in game on those videos said, "Oh, he's done it. He's through to the quarterfinals." No, there was none of that in the commentary, and it just it takes away from that immersion. It takes away from that presentation. So just if they could have a David Hendon, or if they could hire a Joe Hannard next time for all the rounds, I think it would just make it that bit more special.
Yeah, I just to pick up on your point on commentary there, and I thought about it before, but then the conversation sort of moved on. I know my other half actually watched the first snooker match, sort of in the living room, because she knew I was involved in it all, and she said, well, about the commentary and the lack of it, people actually sit in the Crucible Theatre, and most of the audience have a commentary earpiece. And that shows how important commentary is to sort of tell you what's going on, tell you why they're playing certain shots. And, you know, I think particularly in the game version that, you know, as we said before, that's crucial, really, so that people aren't, you know, left confused as to why certain shots happen. But, yeah, just thought I'd bring that up there. But
well, I don't think we said it earlier, but I think you did say to me in a different chat that in the F1 esports they did have they have like an esports correspondent.
Yeah. So they have sort of Jack Nichols and Julian Palmer. This is on the unofficial F1 esports.
the far superior one.
Yeah, but far superior. Yeah, and then they sort of cut to it to like a game correspondent, if you like, to sort of ask about certain things with
which is ideal, really. I think that's the ideal setup.
So yeah, thanks for that, Tom. Chinny, go on then. 2 positives and a improvement.
2 positives. You know, I think other people have touched on this, but like, I feel like we had a good group of players. So that's my first positive, is just a good community. And also it was really nice to extend that community to the real players. You know, getting the real players involved. Mark Selby, even though he looks a little bit miserable when he's playing sometimes, he got into it, didn't he? You know, he was messaging Scott and just sort of getting into it a little bit, and some of the other players, you know, Jan Bintao, you know, his English isn't, you know, perfect, but he still got, you know, did it and sort of sent a message, and I just think that's so nice, you know, so good of them to do that. So I just think the community around it, you know, the people in the Discord and the players themselves kind of got to sort of see each other. And John Higgins, I found out, actually watched the match that Joe played and actually sat down and watched it, you know, leisurely kind of watched it. Not just was told to. I think you're right. I forgot who said it, but you're right. Like, I think they were sort of nudged to, oh, you know, Mark, could you just send this chap a message? He's playing as you, and yeah, no problem. But I think John actually literally just watched it himself as a bit of a, you know, why not? So I thought that was really nice. Second positive, I think, you know, because it's a first time, it's always a bit of a weird thing, but I think World Snooker Tours, I've supported it really well. They were very, very easy with me. You know, I was very cheeky and asking them to send all their assets. They didn't send me them. I said, oh, can you, to make this really easy for me, and they were just like, yeah, and they sent this whole drive full of stuff, and you know, idents to put at the start, and bumpers, and they made another bumper for me, because I said, oh, it'd be good if we had our names at the bottom, and they made one for me, and I thought that was really good, and so they were really supportive of it, and yeah, you know, all that sort of stuff. But I think the improvement really would be the communication leading into it. You know, I know it was a little last minute, but when the first match aired, there's a bit of a shock to the system of like, this is what it's going to be. And I feel like if you've been following the YouTube channel, they've been doing the Crucible Gold stuff and the virtual snooker stuff at the same time, and it felt like there were 2 different silo projects that wasn't merged in any way. And it would have been nice if like they'd had mentioned it and got a few more names involved, and, you know, got a few people to say, oh, this is also happening. But it was like very much, there's the Crucible Gold and they're covering that, and then there's the virtual tournament and they're covering that, and no crossover. And I felt like they could have got us involved a bit more, or whatever, you know, got to know the players a bit more, made more of a platform for the players to shine. Because yeah, I mean, they focused on represent who the players were representing. So they very much focused on, this is Karen Wilson. This is not somebody playing as Karen Wilson. It's Karen Wilson, and it's like, well, you're pulling the wool over people's eyes there. It's not obviously not like, maybe show the person behind the mask a little bit. Like, I get it, like no one's gonna know or care at the start, but like make people care about it a little bit. Like, this is Karen Wilson. This is the person playing as this is.
Maybe do a little feature at the start of the match. Say, this is Mike Chin, and he's been playing snooker since whenever, and he's got a high break of whatever, and he's representing.
I mean, they did ask us for all that information, so they had it on hand.
Yeah, they just put it in one blog, didn't they? And I felt like they you're right, no one does care, and I think I always approach every video that I make with that mentality of no one cares about me. Do you know what I mean? Like, not in a no. I know. Yeah, that's easy. But like, what I'm saying is, it's true though, isn't it? Like, you make a video, no one cares about you, right? So you gotta almost make a video with the thought of, well, why should somebody watch this video of you? Why should somebody subscribe to your channel or whatever? And I always go into that with every video I make. He's like, well, why should I care about this? So they had a chance to like get people to care and go, like, look, this is the chap who's playing as, John Higgins. This is why you should care about him. He's a really good player. He's from Belgium. He's and give him a little bit of a spotlight. And I just felt like they didn't do that. But overall, I think it's gone pretty well for a first attempt.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on all of the things you've said, and I just think it was. I've used this word before, but exemplified by David Hendon when he was commentating. He was very much like, and it's Mark Selby, that's got a chance here, and it's John Higgins, that's got a chance here. It wasn't. Whereas in our commentary we were like, oh, Scott, we very rarely actually mentioned the top 16 pros in our commentary.
Only when we were taking the mickey out of them. But,
yeah.
But the thing is, you can't add a personal trait to an avatar of Karen Wilson. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't. Like, it's just John Higgins is just a computer model in a video game. There's no personality there. Whereas Matitude, Joe and I had this like thing about Matitude, like he always does these swerve shots. And Joe and I got to know these players as we were playing, and like people watching the streams would get to know, oh, this is Matitude. He always puts swerves on the board. Oh, this is RainyLamb. He always goes for one crazy shot and then he plays reserved. So, but the way they did it was, it's just some computer character model playing this game. The way they covered it, it might as well have been an AI versus AI driven thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if they could have just done it that way. You know what I mean? Like, the game allows to do it. You can play. I think you can play AI versus AI.
I don't know if you can actually.
I don't know if you can, but you can.
You can't.
Oh, you can't. Well, I feel like if they could have done it, they would have done it. Because that's kind of what I felt like they wanted.
Imagine the AI versus the AI though. It would have
been ridiculous. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it just felt like they were, they, we were needed to an extent, and I felt like if they would have made us, they would have fleshed out the players a little bit more and gone, right, this is Joe, this is he's good as his break building, and he doesn't like safety, or I don't know if that's true or whatever, but he always goes for the crazy shots to nothing kind of thing. If they'd have done that they had a chance to do that, and I feel it's all last minute. It's the very first one. I get it, but I feel like that's what it was lacking. Was like, why should I back this version of Karen Wilson when I've got no idea who it is?
Sorry, go on, Tom. Go on.
Well, I just was thinking that you're right, because what I said they did well was the sort of the integration with the real world and like the interviews, but they could have ramped that up even more. You could have had, pre-match interviews. You could have had, even more in-depth post-match interviews. You could have had player profiles. You could have had match analysis by pros or by other gamers. You could have had all these things that made it feel more like the proper Crucible coverage, where you have a player profile beforehand, you have their journey to this point, you have a highlight of some of their past shots, you have their they've been at the Crucible 5 times, their high breaker. You have all this stuff in the real snooker that we didn't have. That we just had, here's their photo in the corner, and that was it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think by the final, they'd started to do that a little bit, but even then, it was very much Mark Selby's route to the final, John Higgins' route to the final. And, I've never even thought about this, but actually, we were the ones giving up our free time to play these matches, and actually, did we get that much credit for it? We got this amazing opportunity to play in it, obviously, and we're all incredibly grateful for that, but we never necessarily got any thanks for it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the Ripstone people have been lovely in the Discord.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Is it Holly and Jason?
Jamie.
Holly and Jamie, sorry, in the Discord have both been so lovely, and they've been so kind, and they've really appreciated it. And I guess that is, I mean, one of my main positives is that this is a proper dream come true. Like, all of us for the rest of our lives will be like, we played in the Virtual Snooker World Championship. We'll be like properly excited about it. Like, it's a really cool. It's the closest any of us are going to get to playing at the Crucible. So that's probably my biggest positive that I didn't mention, is that it's just a bloody awesome thing to be invited to do. I don't want to come across as ungrateful or whatever, but it was just something building, on what we said, and maybe getting to know the players a little bit more, because I can almost guarantee that, in 3 months' time, the people that are going to be remembered are probably us, the influencers in inverted commas, and RainyLamb, for winning it, or maybe Mattitude for getting to the final. But are people going to remember the guy that played as, for instance, Stuart Bingham and lost in the first round?
I mean, I can't now, so I definitely won't in 3 months' time.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame that we sort of didn't get to know all of those players on an online platform, but hopefully that's something that they'll do in the future. And I think all four of us, are really hoping that we will see another virtual championship of snooker. I certainly hope that it's not every single tournament of the season, and I don't think it will be, but
see you at the Riga Masters, Joe.
I've always wanted to be the virtual Riga Masters champion, Tom. It's on the bucket list,
unless you miss your virtual flight like Neil Robertson.
No, it would be funny, but I think we'd like to see it maybe for the Triple Crown events, and but then we're going to run into the same problems of it, a BBC tournament and all these commentary, licenses that we were talking about with Chinny before. But no, it's been a really fantastic discussion with you three. So thank you for coming along this evening and spending this amount of time talking about it. I've certainly thoroughly enjoyed it. And have we got any closing remarks that you want to make? Start with you, Chinny.
No, thanks for having me on, really. Snooker, the World Championship, Virtual World Championship, took over my life a little bit. But I have really enjoyed it, and I've really enjoyed getting to know yourself, Joe, a little bit more, and just talking about it and meeting all these players, because I kind of feel like sometimes I'm a little bit siloed in I knew there was a league, like a kind of league that went on before, but I never really got invited to it, and I don't think it was because I wasn't allowed to or whatever. I just never really got involved with it that much, and it's been really nice, actually, and then doing the post-match interviews has been really nice. So I've just really enjoyed meeting everybody, talking to everybody. And people have only said nice things about the commentary that me and Joe have done, and I really do appreciate it. So and thanks for having us on tonight. It's been good.
No, it's our pleasure to have you on tonight, and obviously you can find Chinny's details down below in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. Tommy, have you got anything else to say?
I love snooker, Joe. I love it.
Good night, JV. Sleep well.
I don't think I can really add too much to what Chinny said. Just we had a proper nice group. It was good fun. I think everyone really enjoyed it, even though all of us will look back and have a few shots where we will have a few nightmares over, I think, but that is sport. That's the way it goes. But yeah, it's been good fun. Thank you for inviting me on. Thank you for all you've done, Joe. You've kind of helped foster a... You were kind of, you're the godfather of the online snooker community in many ways.
Do not use words like the godfather of the community. I have far too many flashbacks to something that happened in the F1 community.
Oh dear, yeah.
That.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Toby. If you're watching, by the way, you should know if you're watching who we're talking about. But yeah, it was a fantastic event to be a part of, and I'd like to think maybe me creating some content on this game had in some way some influence on them, putting this thing together, but I think it's the Snooker 19 community in general, and obviously the guys over at Snooker Club Live, although I don't think it's called that anymore, but they certainly put together the hardcore community, and a lot of the players that turned up in the tournament was stemmed from that. So the Snooker 19 community has been really close-knit and brilliant in a way to get the game out there. So any more closing remarks, Toby?
Well, put it this way, 18 months ago, we just about known that we were going to have a new snooker game. I don't think that any of us would have quite predicted the events of the next 18 months, whether that being snooker, the world, whatever. So bring on the next 12 months, I say, in the snooker world. I'm thoroughly interested in what's going to happen. And if you've listened to this point, you're a bloody saint. I can't believe anybody would stand 2 hours of us. Yeah. I'm just speaking for myself, obviously. Nobody else. But if you are still listening at this point, thank you very much. This is our first episode of the new podcast, formerly known as Tuesday Night Live. And we've had over 12 months out now, and it's been a tough one getting a name for this podcast, and we've tried different ideas, and we've gone for one that took me a hell of a long time to think of, and that is Joe and Toby Talk. It does what it says on the tin, and we've been joined by Chinny and Tom tonight, and I just don't think that Joe and Toby and Chinny and Tom, I mean, it's got a nice ring to it, but I don't think it's that bad, actually, now saying it out loud. It's not too bad. I'll have to think about that. But I hope you have all thoroughly enjoyed, and myself and Joe will be back for some interesting deep dives in the future. And who knows if there are any more snooker related content that we do. We'll certainly have Chinny and Tom on the line, I think, Joe, won't we?
Yeah, definitely. If they want to come back, and I know we've kept them for a lot of the night at this point, but no, it's been a pleasure, and obviously nice to be back doing podcasts and just actually sticking the microphone on and rambling for 2.5 hours. It's been a good one. We've had a few laughs, and I'm sure Chinny and Tom will probably pop into the premiere and hopefully chat with a few people that may be bored to death by what we've been saying. But thank you very much for listening. And if you are on Spotify or any other podcasting platforms, Chinny's probably better at this, make sure you give us a follow, and if you're watching on YouTube, then obviously subscribe and check out the full playlist of podcasts for the future. But thank you very much to everybody who has joined me tonight. That is Chinny, Tommy, and of course my co-host Toby. So thank you very much for coming along, spending your Thursday evening with me when we're recording this, and I'll hopefully see you on the next one.